Alrighty. Weird. Now I know how much of a gap there is between when I hit go live and not on scheduled streams. Odd. Okay. Well, welcome to the Monday afternoon, directly afternoon in this case, Max SPL Videos live stream. Hey, maybe I should actually introduce myself at the beginning of these. A few things I want to talk about today. To start, I have some uplights. I want to talk about them without accidentally doxing a bunch of my clients, that's why that previous VOD doesn't exist anymore. Number two, I want to talk about mixer boards, and then just some stuff, because I had some strange comments in some regards that I want to clarify, and then some other stuff I want to get at. A little bit closer, so I don't have to lean in as much, but I look to still be in frame and in focus. Though I wonder. I've got a little more wiggle room. I didn't even figure this out. This has to do, fun fact about cameras and color. Whatever my current white balance settings are, I may have to change, because although I don't look, I look more pale in the YouTube video than OBS. I don't know why. Something to do with the compression. This light behind me is blue. Doesn't look good on stream. I don't mind it. I don't mind the kind of cyan is the color. Speaking of, I bought some uplights. Now, I also recently did a order through AliExpress for some other stuff, but I got my uplights on Amazon for two reasons. One is much faster shipping, and two was it was actually the same price as if I got these particular ones on AliExpress. So if you get that opportunity, if you are hunting for lights and you can get it from a local source, be it a bigger company like Amazon or a smaller company like your friendly neighborhood music store, go for it. When it comes to these uplights and stuff, though, I am my local store. I can't get the ones that I want yet. Somewhere down the road, maybe. I know both lighting, if you're in the States, is a really good call, because ever since Rick Webb took over distribution in the States, you get much faster shipping because they're from the States. And both lighting, from what I hear, has pretty good customer service, but you get localized customer service, right? Customer service in North America. Oh, that's strange. I need to check what I have a suspicion an auto setting might be on my camera, because my face is color changes depending on what angle I am currently facing. That's a little strange. I'll deal with that another day, though. All right, so let's talk about the ones that I got. Full review coming soon. Now, I got them from Amazon.ca, which was another reason I got the particular ones I did. But if you are on Amazon.com, if you're in the States, these might be the best deal on uplights I think I've seen yet. Now, this is from Holdlamp. We'll look at their store in a moment. Oh, interesting. That's good to know. Does that do the same? I'm just checking one thing. Interesting. Different piece of info I was checking there. My right-click stuff doesn't show on camera, which is good, because it's sharing the window instead of the screen. But you can still see my mouse by the look of it. All right. Just still getting used to OBS and all that stuff. I've done a little bit, but usually it's been a stagnant 1 image from like Discord doing like D&D stuff. But yeah, so these are rechargeable 4-in-1 LED uplights at the cheapest price I think I've ever seen uplights for. That's about $50 a pop. They do sell them individually, and they do sell bigger packs. It is worth jumping to the 8-pack. Don't know about the 12. But again, if you're in the States, you can probably make your money back on these in 2 events. So highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. These particular ones, here's why I went with them. 1, they were available in Canada, and 2, they were really cheap. 3, this is a pro or a con, is this traditional par form factor. Now, for you, that could be a negative. They do sell this guy. Like, I think this one is the Holdlamp. Yeah, so this is the other option Holdlamp makes that a lot of people used to use. People have, I think, moved more to the both lighting, kind of that square with 4 lenses. Those are the most popular right now, that are kind of hybrid between the two, right? They take up less space than the big ones, but then they have the yoke or the bracket that lets you adjust the angles and stuff, versus this is you put it on the floor and you hope that it's the right angle. Now, thankfully, they're made to be at the right angle. But these are $100 each, 3 times 4 watt 4-in-1 LED, versus these guys that are $50 each with, as far as I can tell, 4 watt LEDs. Or 3 watt, rather. Because it, I believe, is a 36 watt total, and then you have to do the math. They don't tell you the exact wattage, which is a little bit annoying, but pretty easy to do the math, right? 36 watts, and there's 12 on the faceplate. So, easy enough. There is 12, right? I'm not crazy. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, 12. Okay. I was looking at it. It's looked like a slightly different pattern than what mine have. So I was like, wait, what? But no, it's just the angle is some of the spacing messes with me for the 3 in the middle. But yeah, so these will put out quite a bit more light than these, even though these are more, like, these are double the price and put out less light. If you're wanting, though, the big difference, metal chassis. Lower. Ugh, I wouldn't recommend these. Well, actually, I would recommend these for one very specific feature that they have over the cheaper ones. But these, for just general uplight use, are your best bang for the buck. They are, again, they're the 4-in-1, which there are usually, these U-King ones here are a cheaper option. But skip them. Nothing wrong with U-King. They're actually a more known brand, even though they're still like a no-name brand in some respects, but they are getting popular enough that they're, again, pretty decent ratings, and they make decent stuff. But this is essentially, it's the same, like everything, right down to the back panel being laid out exactly the same everything, except that the lights on the front aren't the 4-in-1. They are just RGB. So you will get better color mixing out of these Holdlamp ones that, while they are on sale, are cheaper. So go for this set, or go for something a little bit more expensive. And I'll show you which ones I would recommend. If you do need, though, wireless DMX, which I have a suspicion... I hope these have wireless DMX for the price. Wireless par. I don't really want to watch the video, but the only reason I would get these, and you would have to confirm before buying, is if they have wireless DMX specifically. Without that, it's not worth spending the extra. Let's get rid of these. Yeah. Now, if you do want to spend a little more, there's some other options. But back to what I was saying about wireless DMX, because these don't have that, you're going to be leaving these as a stationary color. Battery life on these is good. I had them on a non-stationary color. They were color fading and stuff. I got about 9-10 hours on my testing. Full review is coming, so like and subscribe and all that. Color mixing is good. The yellows are horrible, but anything outside of yellow looks pretty good. The W does really help. RGB W lets you kind of oversaturate the white in the colors themselves, so you get extra brightness while pulling the color down a little bit. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but yeah, having the white in there does make for better color mixing in general, because you don't just have to crank all the colors to maximum. But for not a whole lot more, I would go with the same brand, honestly, and get these that are RGBW UV or AUV. The A, honest, I don't care too much about the UV. I've heard tell that being able to blend that UV in a little bit is nice, but the amber in this case makes for much better yellows. So if you need any type of yellow, go with these. These in Canada were more of a price difference. So we're looking at, like, if you're getting 8 packs, $500 for 8 versus under 4 for 8. If you need yellow, that's worth it. If you don't need yellow, get the cheaper ones. That's basically my stance. They have really good battery life. Like I said, 9 to 16 hours is what they quote. I got 10, which lets me fall into that time frame. So really good battery life, decent color mixing, right? I suspect the RGBWA UV will have better color mixing just because you have the extra options to blend in. They are on the yolks, so they're really easy to adjust the angle, and they are dirt cheap compared to other options. They're about half the price of most of the uplights that I have seen. You do get plastic enclosures. They are fan cooled, although one of the reasons I bought the cheap ones to start, I'll probably, seeing how much I like them, I'll probably get the step up models here with the UV and stuff. But the fans aren't as loud as I was worried they would be. With how inexpensive these were, I was worried that they were going to be a loud fan, and they are quieter than most of my other lights. Actually, I think all of my other lights. Any of my other lights that have a fan in them are louder than these, which is an important factor. If I'm putting it up on a truss, I don't care. It can be noisy. I just know which lights to bring to a acoustic venue versus a electric venue, right? I have some moving heads that they do not come along to an acoustic show. They are too noisy for those type of events. Yeah, that's kind of my big things. Like I said, what I would ask yourself is, do you need the better color mixing? If so, get the step up model. Do you need wireless DMX? If so, buy something else. Like those are kind of my two big things. If you need metal chassis, then these aren't what you want. Like, they do feel cheap. They don't look cheap, especially, you got to remember, fellow lighting techs or DJs or sound techs and stuff, they're going to look at them and think, cheap part cans. Your general clientele, they're going to look at them and say, it's a part can. It's a light. Like, they don't even know the term part can. You're going to be fine. So if you use some inexpensive lights that are in a plastic enclosure, nobody's going to bat an eye. It also makes them super light, which can be really nice. I also do like, now the the more traditional form factor of the par in this case lets them double as a stage light for me. That for me added value for you may take away from it, where you may want again like those both lighting. I look it up over here. Oh, that does work. Okay. Wireless uplighting. Now this is a much better website than the AliExpress store. So good job, Rick Webb, if you're the one who put this site together. These ones here, these IR4, they are your best bet. Oh, this isn't the US store. This is bothlighting.com. I think it's bothlighting US. Aha. So again, the regular website. This is better than the like AliExpress is a gong show of a website. This here, this is the one that they've made. Uplights, so much simpler. Now they actually have the prices listed. Now I think that is because so if you're buying direct from this website versus from their AliExpress store, they will like I would actually try if you're not buying from both Lighting USA, go to bothlighting.com and do the inquiry. Only do it if you're serious, like if you're just price shopping, whatever. But it's like you might be able to get a better deal than what's on their AliExpress store because then they don't have to pay AliExpress. You're buying directly through them. I almost bought some a while back and then couldn't in the end, unfortunately. I can't remember if it was both Lighting or if it was a competing brand, but they sent me an Alibaba link that I could buy, and it was like more of a business to business thing and just had a much better rate. It is only a one piece bracket, although I can tell you right from the photo this is a much better quality bracket than the one that are built onto mine. Yeah, these at $200 a pop. You save when you buy them in bigger. Up to 20% off. So if you buy more, you save more. They are worth the extra money if you need the extra features and if you want the smaller form factor, etc. And I'm fairly certain they will be as bright, if not brighter, than these cheaper ones. Where? Okay, reviews and stuff. I want the specifications. You're not gonna tell me? Okay, that's it. This one does. 48 watts of lighting. With lighting, it's not a direct one-to-one, but you can kind of deduce it. Usually like a 20 watt and a 20 watt is going to be roughly the same brightness. So in this case, we're looking at 48 versus 32. So these should be a bit brighter, even though they only have the 4 LEDs. If you don't need the wireless DMX and you don't care about the smaller form factor, these Holdlamp ones, like I don't know how they're doing it. Well, I kind of know how they're doing it for this price. Essentially, they took the cheapest pars on the market that used to be like $25 a par, and they strapped a battery into the back. That's it. That's the whole thing. By not going the wireless DMX route and keeping the cheaper casing, you're essentially paying for the LED board and a battery, and like everything else is just like it costs them a few cents. So yeah, if it was me buying in the States, I would get these ones because you can get an 8-pack for the same price as like 2.5 of the both lighting ones. That being said, the both lighting ones are worth the extra price. Don't take this as a knock on what they're selling. I think they are some of the best value, but these are just a crazy value. And if you're like me, if you're in a smaller area, I've never had a request for uplights. This is one of the first times I'm buying something before it has been a request. I normally don't recommend doing that. Like that's the reason I don't have cold sparks is none of my clients have requested them. I'm also going to get into that a little bit in this video. Uh, maybe I'll talk about that next week. I want to arrange my thoughts, but spoiler alert for next week. Cold sparks in my jurisdiction, way bigger pain than they are worth, so I don't know if I'm going to bother. Your mileage may vary. Anyway, yeah, so those are those. Like I said, I really I really dig them. Holdlamp, they're a strange company, at least in Canada. They're like an importer kind of thing, so they've got like a whole bunch of yeah. See, they've got like the dirt cheap ones too. Don't bother with these, right? Spend the $50 extra and get these with the RGBWA. Trust me, really comparing those two. They also have these style. These you gotta plug into the wall. I'm curious, are these the waterproof ones? No, they're not. Though I know in Canada they sell a waterproof one. And then they also do some moving heads and stuff. They have one that looked real cool. Yeah, this one. If I could use fog, I would be buying a set of these. If I could use haze and fog, this light would look amazing. Essentially, it is kind of that BI effect on the surround. Oh, this is the this is different than what I thought it was. This one is a par, by the look of it, that happens to have a gobo in the middle. Oh, and I like they actually put thought into the airflow. Hey. Yeah, in Canada, can I find it here? Holdlamp. Yeah, and you'll get a chance to see why Canadian pricing is aggravating. Ooh, quite a bit more expensive for this kind of stuff here. Though again, my lights weren't too bad. So this does the classic gobo projection thing, but then unlike that other one that's more of a par, this one is like this beehive kind of or BI kind of lens. I don't think this other guy is. Not by the look of it. That looks like more traditional par, which might actually be more useful for me. If they bring these to Canada, I'll put that down as a maybe. But these have like that BI. These stupid. I hate it when they do this. It's like, yeah, this is usable at these events, and none of this is this light. Yeah, so this shows it a bit here. If you have fog, each of those BI lenses gives you kind of, and you can like, depending on the angle of the lenses, gives you sort of a derby effect on the wall, but from a fog perspective, looks like a lot of beams and can look real cool. Unfortunately, I can't use fog. That middle one shows you them both in use, right? So you get that kind of derby-y kind of thing with that in the middle. Super versatile, super cool. Unfortunately, useless to me right now. I would like to be able to use fog and haze, but not in my not at the venue. Like, there's like one venue I go to that I can, but do I want to bother with fog and haze if I've only got one venue that can use it? Anyway, enough about lighting. Let's talk about some audio. So I've had some interesting experiences this week. We're going to use Sweetwater for our examples. I have no affiliation with them. I always recommend going to your local dealer. But I want to talk a little bit about some mixers and stuff. And Sweetwater carries quite a variety of products. They're usually at about the right price. So just going to use them. There's no affiliate links or anything like that. I don't care where you buy it. I recommend buying it from your local dealer. But I digress. Mixer boards. Recently had somebody come in and they were looking into how do I start running karaoke at my house. And I showed them a board kind of similar to this one. And I said, this is what I use if I'm running karaoke. And his eyes went, oh no, I'm not doing that. Now, part of the reason was the price, right? I showed him a board, less expensive than this one, but still fairly, up there from what they were expecting to spend, because they were looking for just like a karaoke machine. And then I had somebody else where they came in and they had like a large form factor mixer, full like tour or bar grade. Like I think it had 24 inputs or something like that. Nice old Yamaha board, about 20 years old, giving them some trouble. They just decided they're buying a new one, so they're getting one through me. But this kind of sparked the idea. I want to talk a bit about mixer boards here. If you're looking at a mixer board like this one, now I'm going to use this Yamaha. Again, I'm not a Yamaha dealer. I just like Yamaha boards, so they're going to be a good example. And you see all those knobs and all of these jacks and stuff. Let us talk a bit about them. Now, I am going to use the magnifying glass, so we're going to be looking over at that. Although why it's not lining up with the photo, I don't know if you see that. Like, I'm off in the white here, and it's showing the edge of the product. That's strange. But starting at the top, we've got our mic/line input. If you see that type of connector, those are my favorites. I love those. Those are a XLR, which is like your microphone 3-jack or 3-pin setup, and a line level like 1/4-inch jack. So like your guitar style cable or your TRS, that kind of thing, which stands for tip ring sleeve. So this, if you can see that, it'll be out of focus because of my camera. Has this black ring right here that my finger's touching. That is a TS, tip sleeve. TRS looks like a headphone jack where it has an extra one of these black rings on it. So it stands for tip ring sleeve. They're each separated and they each carry a slightly different, either a different signal or a different part of the signal depending on how it's wired in. So that's why we have this setup, that is designed to take either. They're a little more expensive than a standard jack. I think they sometimes work out to less expensive than having separate jacks, but don't quote me on that. So that's our main jack. Okay, so at the top we have our input. Then we have a pad, HPF. Pad drops the volume of the input. A lot of mixers have those, some don't. Careful of them, right? My fiance, she was doing a bunch of Zoom calls last year for online school, and at some point bumped her pad, and no matter how high she turned her microphone, nobody could hear her, and she got super frustrated. She asked me for help. I walk in, one button, and she was not too happy. But it is just one of those cases of sometimes if you have a button that can ruin your day, make sure you know it. Now, down below it, we have our gain knobs. Back up to the top. HPF, that stands for high pass filter. This one says 80 hertz. So that's your frequency range, right? Low hertz, like 20, 30, 40, 60, 80. High hertz, 1800 hertz, right? 18 kilohertz. Which that would be 18,000 at that point. But like we're getting higher pitch, lower pitch, right? So if you're used to your car stereo where you've got low, mid, high, this is the low side. Why do we have this? So high pass means it's letting the high frequencies pass. It's letting them get by it. So it gets rid of everything under 80. The most useful button on this board. Turn that on for any singers, any spoken word stuff, any acoustic guitars, a maybe, but I'd probably leave it off for that. But just anything that you want less bass on or doesn't have a lot of bass to it, you can throw a high pass filter on and it'll get rid of any accidental bass that's happening, right? On your drum kit, if you're miking up a hi-hat, you want your high pass filter on so your hi-hat isn't picking up the bass from your kick drum and things like that. Yeah. There's some other ways around it, but that's probably one of the most important buttons to just learn when to use and when not to use, and it will make your life way easier. Now, they may not always be in this order. Sometimes gain is like right up near the inputs, but gain is signal amplification. Generally speaking, you want the gain up as high as you can without getting any extra noise. General rule of thumb, that's about it. And or if you start getting feedback and stuff. In this case, we have a compressor, comp. Those are very, very useful. Compressors, essentially what they do is they pull the peaks volume-wise down in terms of volume so you can raise the whole total volume. So if you have a very, very dynamic singers, you may want to leave it off because then you keep the dynamics. But if you have a singer who has a habit of moving around and they put their microphone a little too far away and that kind of thing, nice to turn that compressor up. So I look for boards that have that compressor knob. Your mileage may vary, right? It's not a deal breaker for speech and things like that, but it's really nice to have. Something I really like about these Yamaha boards, again, I'm not a Yamaha dealer. I technically carry some of their main competitors these days, but I didn't want to just show off stuff that I sell because that sometimes feels a little, I don't know how I feel about it. Going down, we have high, mid, low. Already talked about frequencies and stuff, but they have next to them, you can see the frequency where the band sits. So if you raise it, it'll kind of create a, like if you raise the mid, that one is likely going to be like a little hill, and it just kind of raises up that frequency and those frequencies around it. Sometimes you'll find a fancy mixer that has like mid frequency, so it'll say mid and mid frequency, and that is like it changes where in the spectrum that mid hump, whether it's going up or down, is. That is handy. If you're new, I would recommend just a EQ like this. If you want a bit more control, that's where a semi-parametric comes in. Going down, we have aux 1 with a pre button, and we have aux 2/effects. This is a small form factor board. If you're going into a bigger one, you're going to have more of these. Pre-fader means this fader down here doesn't affect it. The heck does that mean? Well, if you have, say, a microphone and you want it to go to a monitor, right, like a stage monitor or a recording device, things like that, and you don't want it affected by the fader, you set it to pre. Pre-fader generally is used for your monitor sends, right? Auxiliary, right? They aren't, sometimes they'll actually be labeled monitor. That's less common, but it does happen. In this case, we want to think pre-fader for monitors and post-fader for effects. In this case, this is a small form factor board. It just has aux 2/effects. So this has, scrolling over here, again, this, I don't know what it is. I don't know why this box showing what I have highlighted doesn't line up. But that is our effects on here. So the aux going to the effects here will go into that effects processor, right? You used to have like a big piece of rack gear or something else, depending on how you wanted to set it up, to run different effects and stuff. Most boards come with that on it. So if you're using a board like this, it has built-in effects. You set the effect you want, and then the aux 2, in this case, decides how much of that effect you want going in that channel. And what you don't want is that to be pre-fader, because then you turn your volume down and the reverb keeps happening. We want that as we move this up or down, as we move that fader, the reverb is affected. So you don't end up with like, oh, I turned the channel up and now I can't hear the reverb at all. I turned it down and now the reverb's way too loud. It just moves it with it. It's the best way I can describe it. So it is post fader. So the sound goes down that channel, leaves after the fader, then goes through the aux. Hence pre and post fader. Now this one has some adjustments and stuff for the effects. This particular unit does have up here, you can see aux sends. So that's where you would wire in those things. If you had a external effects unit, you would plug it into aux 2. Although I don't see the effect return. Usually you have a send and return. This one doesn't, which is a little strange. But yeah, on other boards, you'll see aux 1 to send. You'll see aux 1 to return. And that's for if you're creating a loop, right? You're looping it back in so that as you affect things, it's all labeled under one thing. Carrying on. So that's our aux pre and post. Then we have pan. That is how much it is left, how much it is right. Pretty simple. Then we have our on-off button. Sometimes it'll be labeled mute. So this is the reverse of the usual. Usually you have a mute button that turns the channel off. This has an on button that turns the channel on. Functionally the same thing. It's just when this is engaged, it's on. On a mute button, when you engage it, it's off. So you just have to know what your board is using. Now this has a peak indicator. That is if your channel is too loud. Has 1, 2, and st. So 1 and 2 means there's a group setting in this. That means a stereo group. We'll look at that in a moment, but that is a bus. So a bus is you, just like a school bus, bunch of stuff goes into it versus a single lane on the light that you got a car in, right? That's the idea. So the bus is we put all these channels together. So if I select stereo, ST, it goes straight to the main fader. If I select 1, 2, it goes to group 1 and 2. Now, why is that useful? It can be used in a bunch of different ways. The main one that I use it for example, would be if I was mixing, I could put all of my drums onto a group, and then you send that group. So the individual tracks I don't send to stereo. I send the group to stereo, because then now all of my drums are on one fader. So I mix my drums. I like how my drums sound. Oh, drums are too loud, drums are too quiet. Instead of, okay, drums are too, and trying to then like remix it on the fly. No, I don't like doing that. So that's the point of a group. Smaller boards like this tend not to have them. So I'm actually impressed that this little board has it. But that's what those are. Our fader, which that affects our volume to whatever you have it set to. And then at the bottom, PFL, pre-fader level. So gain for checking your gain levels and stuff like that, because it's showing you the metering over here, either of the general output, your stereo output, or PFL. Now PFL is useful for sound check and stuff. And if you have something set to PFL, the PFL light there lights up, and then you don't see the main output metering. So useful when trying to figure out gain settings and stuff like that. But yeah. Now, here's why I went up and down. If I go to channel 2 and 3 and 4, those all look identical. Hey, right? So if you learn one channel on a mixer, you know the majority of your mixer. That's why if you look at this as at a whole, it's like, oh my God, this looks intimidating. And then it's like, oh, well, it's actually one thing like 6 or 7 times, right? Now, of that because I want to be able to zoom in here. Now we start to get to these other channels. We run into this button in the middle, Phantom plus 48, channel 1 through 7/8. Phantom power. That runs a 48 volt power connection to the mic inputs. Only useful if you're running certain condenser microphones that need it, right? So check what mics you're using, right? If you plug a condenser mic in and it's not making any sound, well, then it needs phantom power. It should tell you in your microphones manual. Don't just leave it on because, oh, well, sometimes I might, because then run into two problems. One is sometimes if somebody unplugs a microphone when they're not supposed to, that can make a bigger pop when you have the phantom power on and off. In my experience, that could just be placebo, and I just notice it more. But yeah, I find when people are plugging and unplugging things, I tend to get a lot more racket when phantom power is on. And two, it is sending power through the cable. It's not it's not going to hurt anybody or anything like that, but you could cause like weird shorts on your board or something if you're constantly it's not designed to be like hot swappable is often what's called in like a computer. It's like you can unplug this while the computer's on. There are some things in your computer that are not, right? You need to have it powered down if you're going to remove this connection. This is one of those cases where I would have it off before you unplug whatever you're going to unplug. Also, the last but kind of least, there used to be some microphones that don't like phantom power. Any of your standard vocal mics and whatnot these days are perfectly fine with it, and most ribbon mics are actually okay with it too. But in the olden days, there were certain ribbon mics, and you don't want to find out the hard way. But yeah, there are certain ribbon mics that will die if you run phantom power into them. They're just not designed to have power ran into them like that. It just doesn't work. So scrolling over and over and over, like I said, all of these are kind of the same, but you'll notice now we have L/mono R. These last few channels, 5, 6, 7, 8, they can double as stereo channels. So if you have something like a keyboard that has hard pan left, right stuff, you can plug both of them into here. And now instead of using two channels, it's using two channels on the board, but it's using one strip of the board. That is something to always keep in mind. This is labeled a 12-channel mixer, but you'll notice we only see 6 microphone preamps on it. And that's okay. That's how it's designed, right? My 12-channel mixer has 4 mic preamps. When you're first starting out, that can get a little annoying and weird, because then there are some, I know, I'm a Soundcraft dealer, and I'm selling somebody a what was it, EFX 12 or something like that. Might be misremembering the model number, but it's a 12 channel, but actually has 12 microphone inputs. So very useful if you need a lot of mics, not as useful if you want a lot of stereo stuff into it. Now 9, 10, 11, 12 are only stereo channels. They don't have the mono inputs. So they will, if you plug in to just one side, you will only be hearing it through one speaker unless you have your whole system running in mono. But we'll talk about that another day. Then we have, like I said, our outs, stereo out. That's your main outs, headphone out. Now, monitor out, in this case, this is why I don't like necessarily how some mixers have monitor instead of aux. It can make more sense because it's like, well, I'm sending it to my stage monitors. No, this monitor is, if you've ever been in like a real big show, you'll actually see sometimes they'll have in the booth, like the sound booth, if it's separated from the main area, right? Like it's in like a glass kind of thing. They'll have monitors in there. They'll have little set of speakers. Oh, hey there, B. Yeah, no, thanks for stopping by. Yeah, the UI 16 is quite a nice mixer, and I'm gonna get into talking about actually those in a moment. I'm just going over mixer boards here actually. But yeah, the MG10 that you had is a good mixer, but yeah, it is a whole different ball game moving up to something like the UI16. But yeah, if you're looking in here, like I was saying there, the monitor output on this is for basically the same idea as like the headphone adjuster. It's just a second set of speakers that just the person using it is. But yeah, long story short, like don't let all of these knobs and switches and stuff intimidate you if you've never used a mixer board before. Buying a mixer like this is a learning curve, but it's actually really easy. Learn one channel and how it interacts with, like, learn channel 1 and how it interacts with this stuff here at the end. Then everything in between is exactly the same. Now, if you're buying a mixer, then we have to make some distinctions, because you see here analog mixers, digital mixers, powered mixers, line mixers, and then if you go into like the DJ section, there's DJ mixers. Briefly, DJ mixers work exactly the same, but they're usually designed for like you're plugging in audio sources that you want to pan quickly back and forth between and stuff like that. They're a bit of a different world than just general audio mixers. I might talk about those down the road, but they're not really my area of expertise. I use controllers and stuff and then plug them into this stuff. Although your controller, if you look, the middle of it is a mixer section. So that's what would be like a DJ mixer. Line level mixers are usually for installs where they have to take a bunch of stuff and like send it to different rooms and stuff. For your general buyer, don't worry too much about them. Now you get into powered mixers, open a new tab. Digital mixers, open a new tab. Analog mixers, where we kind of started. Yeah. No, I feel you. Yeah. The UI16 versus like a analog mixer. It is worth hanging on to the analog mixer, because it's even just as a backup, but also something I'll note. Just talking about the UI16, because I don't know what you're all micing up and stuff. The 12 mic preamps on the UI16 is enough for 95% of what I do, but every now and then I have a little bit more stuff I have to deal with, right? Of somebody they'll have like I was gonna do sound for a band. It ended up getting canceled, but they wanted it was a full drum kit, 2 guitars, bass, voice, and then a few backup vocals. So if you run into a situation like that, hanging on to your MG10, because Yamaha, that's the 10. Do they show the 10 in here? I think the 10 has 4 mic preamps. Yeah. What I would do is if you hang on to your MG10, you put your 4 tom mics, or 3 tom mics, I guess, into here. Maybe even, no, I'd probably keep the snare separate, but you can plug all your tom mics into this, run the outputs of it to your MG16 on, you can even just mono it, and now you have your 4 tom mics taking up 1 input. Problem solved. So yeah, hanging on to the MG10 is a good call. But speaking of something like the MG10, this would be what we would call an analog mixer. They've got microphone preamps, you've got knobs, in this case instead of faders, and this particular unit has effects somewhere. Oh, yeah, there they are. They're tucked over here. So you'll find... now, I'm actually happy with Sweetwater in this case. One of my more local dealers doesn't distinguish them in the same way. They've started to. You will find a lot of websites have analog and then analog with effects, or with digital effects, and then digital. And sometimes things will get misplaced. This is a analog mixer that has digital effects. A digital mixer, like the UI16 that I was chatting about there, those are a completely different ballgame. This runs the same way mixers have ran for the past 100 years, where it's just channel, 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 and then runs it all through analog, right? It's all wired in and then has the effects and stuff built in. Now, you'll also see this as a USB port. Be very careful if you're buying a mixer board to record. 9 times out of 10, that USB port is just your stereo outs. So if you go to record, whatever you have plugged into the mixer through all these inputs and stuff is coming out, and what you're getting is the exact same signal as your master fader as the very end. If you want, I've plugged 4 mics in and I want to record 4 channels, then you need something that has multi-track output, which we'll get to when we get to digital stuff. But yeah, so that's an analog mixer versus an analog mixer with digital effects. Both very useful, especially in these smaller form factor things. Powered mixers, generally speaking, are that exact same thing, but they have an amplifier built in. These are slowly, well, actually quickly, losing favor with the vast majority of end users. Powered speakers are the future for almost all mobile operations. I still use some powered mixers for rental use, smaller events, that type of thing, because I happen to have a bunch of passive speakers. But you're going to see slowly but surely, and we already have seen, right? When I go to the analog mixer section here on Sweetwater, in stock, availability, 259 options. Now, some of those are like the same mixers, but with additional accessories and stuff. Powered mixers, if you add these up, we're looking at 11 options. 13, right? This is it on Sweetwater, which, to my knowledge, Amazon might beat them in terms of output, but Sweetwater is like one of the biggest North American distributors, or retailers rather. Distributors are a little bit different. So if they're only carrying like under 20 of these things, there's not a lot left, and that's fine. Now, should you get a powered mixer, or should you go for passive speakers with an amplifier, or powered speakers? Probably the latter. It truly depends. The reason I like powered mixers for rental and lending and whatnot is I can send, like I've got a Yamaha one. Do they have any? They don't have the one. I've got one on my reviews that's very similar to some of these, but we'll use this guy as an example. I can send out basically a mixer like this, and they send one cable out to each speaker, and it's set up. When you're running a passive mixer, be it digital or analog, into powered speakers, people have to know how powered speakers work. And if you send it out and somebody's nicked the wrong switch, or they've turned a volume knob down on the speaker, all of a sudden I'm getting a troubleshooting call. This type of setup avoids that troubleshooting call. That's one of the reasons, if you know, the Angry Sound Tech did a review that kind of opened my eyes to this a while ago on the Yamaha Stage Pass. Great little setup. And again, it's kind of the last place that some of these exist. Now, annoyingly, the Stage Pass, I don't know why they were like, oh, we're going to be clever and just take the one of the S's up. But this setup here, for example, has this board that has an amp built in that goes out to these 2 speakers, and that's his rental system of choice because he just knows it's going to work. So I've gone to, for rentals, or if I'm sending out a less experienced technician, I will send them out with a powered powered mixer rather than dealing with this other stuff. If you know what you're doing, or if you're planning on knowing what you're doing, I would go for a non-powered mixer and either use powered speakers, which again, those are 90% of the time going to be the answer if somebody's looking into it, or speakers with an amp. It's just, even though I have some powered mixers that I love, I have a hard time recommending them anymore. Now, digital mixers, oh boy, it's a whole new world. I do not recommend digital mixers if you have not used an analog mixer. Digital mixers range between a box like this one here, or do they have the Soundcraft one that I use and or was just talking about? should be on here. I know they sell them. Well, they might not carry sound. They don't carry Soundcraft? Or am I just not seeing it? Oh, no. Why is it series and not brand? Oh, there we go. Brands. Soundcraft. Haha, they do. This is the one I personally use. If they have it somewhere on here. Oh, it was like the first thing and I just missed it. Which I just did a review on it. Again, I am a Soundcraft dealer, so I have my biases. But this is what I personally use now. And I have a hard time going back. However, this, you have to know what you're doing in order to use. And I don't mean that to attack anyone per se of like, oh, you don't know what you're doing. you don't get this. Legitimately, if you have not used an analog mixer before, the user interface on these full digital control it on a tablet kind of things is going to drive you nuts because you're learning two things at once. The user interface on boards like this, I don't know if they have any photos in here, but essentially is a analog mixer turned into a digital thing on here. So if you don't know how an analog mixer works, now you're learning the hardware and the software at the same time. Learn the hardware first. Do what our buddy, is it B Owl? How do you pronounce that? Aull. Owl? I'm terrible with names in general. But he had the MG10 first, and then moved up to something like this. That is a good track because not only, like I mentioned earlier, can you wire them together and like make use of the old hardware. When you bring up the UI stuff for this, you'll actually know what you're doing. So I recommend something like that first. Now, all that being said, there are digital mixers that look like this. These are, I wouldn't even call this a hybrid of the two. This is how digital mixers all used to be, where everything on here is running through a bunch of like digital stuff. This could be a better option if you need to dive into something like this right away, but I just don't necessarily recommend it. They are a lot. This is like tour ready. I've been doing this a while kind of stuff, but you still have your knobs, your faders, etc. Yeah, and like Soundcraft, they're my new preference for this type of stuff. Presonus makes some, Behringer makes some for like the no knobs, no attachment, that kind of thing. The X32 from Behringer, this is strange to say, this lineup of mixers is a rider-friendly mixer board now. If you're familiar with what rider-friendly means, a rider, if you've heard the whole thing about the green M&Ms, or no, brown M&Ms in a bowl, that whole thing wasn't just them being pretentious. It was so that they knew when they came in, they walked into the change room or green room and they saw the M&Ms there. They know now. Unknown. Give me 2 seconds. He's gonna answer this. Could be a business call. I'm Huh. Done. Clients. But, in a good thing. If people want to give me money, I will. I don't make money on this stream, so they take precedence. Where was I? Oh, yeah, I was talking about these rider friendly. So if you're putting together a system, sometimes you'll get a rider that will say, yeah, they just need a mixer board with X amount of inputs. I have had some that say I need these microphones. Then I've had other ones that say these microphones or an equivalent. That's my preference. Equivalent, that makes me happy, right? Now, you want to be careful with rider friendly and just, equivalent, cool. Microphone's a microphone, right? If somebody's asking for like an SM58 and you show up and you're throwing like an XM8500, which are good, but they're going to look at you and like, we're paying you the same for this $25 mic as we would for this $100 mic, right? So, but yeah, the Behringer ones used to be like Behringer. If you walked into an event and you had a Behringer board, people would give you a side eye. Now if it's an X32 series board, your clients are happy. I helped out on a I can't remember the name of the band, but I basically roadied and then ran the follow spots for an event 3 years ago that they toured with a X32. Now, one of the big advantages of something like a digital mixer isn't just the ins and outs and all of this stuff. Ins and outs are great. Like this many ins and outs on this size of or that like I said, the one that I use, like it just takes up a few rack spaces. It is so nice to have a 12 mic input board that just fits in like a little rack case and then you're set. The big advantage of digital, there's two. One is more options per channel. So for example, I mentioned on some of those analog boards, having that compressor knob, very, very handy to have. On the UI, we'll talk about Alan and Heath stuff in a second. This is one that actually I want, even though I'm not an Alan and Heath guy. Craft UI 16. See if I can bring up the actual web page for this thing. So on these, I have EQ, dynamics, effects sends, aux sends. The actual UI is in some ways way more user friendly, right? On some of those other ones, I had things like we talked about the PFL pre-fader level versus just regular levels. This, you've got that for every channel individually. So if you have a channel that's feeding back, you'll see, there's the channel that's feeding back. It's just, you can visually see it. It's just really, really nice. But then for EQ and dynamics, the dynamic setting, I now have gates and compressors fully controllable on every channel. That's so nice to have. We used to have to carry a rack full of gear and patch it all in and all this stuff. It was the worst. Now, problem solved. EQ-wise, you've got your standard EQ. I think they do 6 or 7 band on these Digitech ones, but you have a little more options and whatnot there. The big thing when it comes to this EQ stuff is you have 31 band EQs on all of your aux sends and on your mains. Those type of things are used for controlling feedback. It also has feedback, like auto feedback suppression. The UI16's auto feedback suppression, I actually prefer. I know it's blasphemous from a sound tech perspective to use auto feedback over manually doing it. The notches that they put in are so small and accurate that to me it honestly sounds better than if I do it by hand. So I do like the auto feedback suppression, and then I do a little by hand if I need to. Once you learn how to do it, because again, there's learning curves that get added every time you do stuff like this. Anytime you have things like this, so there's like the EQ adjustment. You can even see the signal underneath and how it's affecting it. Oh, it's so nice. But yeah, that's one of the big things is just the extra options of everything. But the last and most important part of a digital mixer, and why every touring band in the world is using one now, save. If you've ever done sound at a bar, or if you know somebody who's done sound at a bar, cell phones were actually very, very handy when it came to doing sound at a bar, because you could take a photo of your last settings for that band and you kind of knew what you were going to need to do the next time, right? Or you get a really good feel for the board and you just know kind of where to set it up the way you like it. I can, if I am doing, say, the same band every week, or if I'm touring with a band, I can save. Here are my settings. Here's how I want this thing every time. And it doesn't matter if things get bumped or jostled or whatever. The next time I'm on, I hit recall and everything flips back into place. That is one of the reasons why a lot of these digital mixers are quite expensive. When you start getting into these massive mixers in the digital realm, they have what is it called? What's the term for it? Essentially, the faders are actually controlled by the software. It knows where you've set them, but when you hit recall, the fader will actually move to where you have it. We have one of these in the recording studio. In a recording studio situation, they're not as useful as they used to be because DAWs have just improved that much. They don't really need a control surface or a mixer anymore, in my opinion. But live, being able to hit recall and it just switches and you can see where everything is, right? That's why even these guys, these PreSonus ones, now I'm a PreSonus dealer, so call me a hack if you want for recommending these. It is really nice to be able to hit the button and your faders move to where you want it. PreSonus did make, and I think they still make, a less expensive option. Where is it? You'll see here. So this one coming up on $2,000. This one here, $700 less, doesn't have the moving faders, right? You can manually move them, but the way that this one worked, and it kind of works similar. I've seen some of this stuff on like phones and stuff before too. Unless they've changed these, which I don't believe they have. The mixer doesn't respond until you have moved the fader past where you kind of had it originally set. So it's dropping the cost and weight in some response, some size of that as well. But yeah, the mechanical faders and the moving faders are very, very nice. If you don't want to spend the money on moving fader stuff, that's where you go to the digital side where you have the faders that you can save and recall because then they're just controlled by a touchscreen. So now let's talk. We got a question here asking about the CQ12T. Let's look this up on here. CQ12T. I haven't used this myself, but if it's what I think, I want one. I don't have any experience with these yet. But this to me is the best of both worlds of something like the UI16. The UI16 is amazing and is amazing for the price especially. The amount of processing you can do in terms of signal processing, right? EQs on every channel, in terms of like the I think it's it's a 4-band with a high pass filter. Yeah. But with the compressors on every channel, the effects on here are great. The 31 band EQs on all the aux ends and things like that. If you're planning on building a whole rig, to just have 2 aux ends with EQs and then EQ on your main in terms of 31 bands, right there, that's the same, if not more expensive than getting just the UI16. So value for money there. And then the way that it works is you use a tablet or something, you connect to a Wi-Fi network, right? That's why they got the Wi-Fi antenna here, which the built-in one's garbage, ish. There's some workarounds. I've got a video on I don't know if it's 100% Soundcraft's fault that some of the Wi-Fi issues keep happening. But as soon as I slapped a $30 router to the back of mine, just double-sided tape, I haven't had any of the problems that I hear a lot of people have. So do keep in mind an external router does come into play with this, in my opinion, but I think it's not as bad as some say, because when I've used one of these with just the internal router, it's been fine. If I, again, watch my video, I work my way through it a bit. Something like this here, I think is the best of both worlds situation, where it has a touchscreen built in and then has connectability via network, USB. There's an app. I don't know if the app works like Bluetooth or whatever to control it. I don't know if it's Wi-Fi. I don't have a whole lot of experience with these. I've seen the bigger version. There's another version that has more preamps, and that one intrigues me a lot more. Get rid of that. Yeah, the 16. I don't know if I would bother with the 10 unless I was doing, or the 12 unless I was doing very small events. Two things. One, 16 mic inputs. I think that is the sweet spot, because as soon as you add drums, you're taking up like 7 or 8. There's ways to mic live drums with 4, but if you're doing your toms, you want at least 8, in my opinion. So having the extras on here is really nice. But I have seen a few demos of this, and it has some features that, oh man, this is, I'm hoping this means Soundcraft is going to do a Mark II, because this is now their main competition, right? Mackie has done some units, but I think they were more expensive than the UI series. Behringer has their competition, but Soundcraft has a bigger name in mixers that's starting to change. They have to be a little bit worried about it. Allen and Heath, they're coming out swinging with this thing. This thing is priced very competitively. I know some people out there, if you're looking at your first mixer, you're going to look at that and say, wait, that's competitive? Yes. That is a very competitive price. For this amount of inputs and this amount of processing power, because just looking at let's see here, let's use Yamaha as an example over here on our analog side. 16 channel, but that doesn't have 16 mic inputs. What is I believe this is the first price wise that has 16 mic inputs. It might not even though. It might say in the description rather than me counting manually. Does it tell me? Fader 16. Inputs line. Channels 20. I hate. All right, manual it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So to get a 16-channel Yamaha, you're looking at $830. These are great boards. Don't get me wrong. Like this at $830, they're asking the right price. Those are great, right? This 16-channel, this is 270 more, 260 more. In my opinion, worth it. And again, I'm not a Yamaha dealer or a Allen Heath dealer. This is worth it in terms of it is smaller and can do more. The processing on it is very similar from what I've seen to something like the UI 16. It has a few extra things up its sleeve that, especially for if you're doing band after band after band after band, right? If you're working at a bar situation, that I think would be indispensable. And if I was doing, like, I might get one of these just for that alone. It has an auto gain section that, again, from a sound tech perspective, oh yeah, I know how to gain stage. You should know how to gain stage. You want to know how to gain stage before you use an auto thing to do it. But flat out, you can have a band you've never heard before, get all the mics in front of everything, And instead of going piece by piece through the band, right? Of like, okay, I set them. Oh, now, okay, I got to readjust because now they're, or even just the drummer, right? Doing one drum at a time in terms of gain staging and things like that. Okay, everybody just play a song for a minute. They just start playing, guitars going, singer singing. You hit the auto gain button. It sets all of your gain to be a decent amount without clipping on every channel. So if you've got 16 channels of audio going and you have to do real fast sound checks, really, really quick turnover, you got band after band after band, that feature alone is very useful. Being able to just hit a button, hey, gains are all set, and then, yeah, you have to manually then set, okay, how much do I want going through the monitors? You have to go set your EQs. You have to do that. But that takes care of quite a bit of work instantly, right? And again, just even if you just use it for drums, right? Get the drummer just to play, hit that button, cool. That can save you a ton of time. And that's, like I said, in terms of like the recall functions on digital mixers and stuff, how I was saying that can save you a lot of time as a sound tech for these bigger events and stuff. They are worth it. Getting a digital mixer is one of the best investments I think I've made in a long time. I went, like I said, I went for the UI. I think dollar for dollar, this thing is ridiculously good. I think it's less than half the price of some of these other ones, right? Not quite this guy, but I think it's less than half the price of their 16. This 16 does have some advantages because it does have the 4 extra mic preamps. To me, that's why I think Soundcraft has to do a V2. They've got some major competition here. Prior to this, I think one of their main competition or main pieces of competition was actually, let's get digital mixers up here again. No, not studio. Digital mixers. Prior to this, one of their biggest competitions in this field, in my opinion, other than the Behringer stuff, but again, like they've got some stuff to fight against, was this guy. This works very similarly. I do love these. I believe they have the rest of all 16 channels can be used as mic inputs. They've got main and then 6 aux outs and stuff. This is the same idea, but it fits into one rack unit. Oh, that'd be so nice. That'd be so nice to have a single rack unit be all of your ins and outs for a band. I think you can hook it up. I think you can do the control. You paid $360 for your UI 16. You're fine. You're set. You're good. I know the CQ12 is tempting, but use that UI for a bit. They're at that price. Yeah, you're laughing. Limited time offer. It's regularly $1,200. There we go. These, I think you could use them with a router to do wireless. But again, you just use your own router, and it's going to be more reliable than the ones built into these things anyway. I considered one of these, but it again was going to be like, this is roughly twice the price of, not quite twice the price. Its regular price is twice the price, but has 16 channels, right? That to me is the big thing, is having a proper 16 mic inputs across the back, or in this case, back and front. I do run into situations where I have to use a external. Now, The UI24 solves that problem. It solves a lot of problems. The UI24 is an amazing unit. If I didn't already have a recording studio set up, I probably would have gone for the UI24. The big difference between the 16 and the 24 is the 24 has multi-channel recording, and that's sick. It also has more ins, more outs, but yeah, multi-channel recording. That's the big difference. But has, I think it's a full 20 mic preamps across the front. And if I get into more and more live gigs that need more than the 16 can handle, I'm probably going to invest in one. I might. This is super tempting. It is going to depend on what Soundcraft does. If between now and when I get something like the 24, Soundcraft comes out with a UI24 Mark II or something like that, I'll probably just stick with Soundcraft. I know it. I love it. I'm gonna stick with it. But yeah, Alan and Heath came out swinging with this. Going back to what I was getting at with it, though, one of the reasons why I think this is the bridge between the two is you can control it with everything, but that touchscreen on it does have a lot of functionality in terms of routing and adjusting things, etc. So if you don't have a tablet, or if you'd rather control it on the unit, it has it built in. Now for me, not a big deal. Like, I don't mind having to use a I just went to my local electronic recycler and found a which one was I using last? I think I was using an old Dell. I got for like $100. I highly recommend, if you're going to be using stuff like this guy, if you're a Windows user like me, I love buying old, what are they called? Surface Pros. Microsoft Surface Pros are dirt cheap because a lot of companies buy them by the busload. They will buy 50 to 100 of them, hand them out to all their employees, use them for 2 or 3 years. Okay, it's time to retire those, and we're getting a new set. And then they all go to these electronic recyclers to wipe clean. And essentially, this one's not working, like the screen's busted, but all the internals are good. This one has a working screen, but the hard drive's toast. They'll like move a hard drive from one, and they'll like swap parts around. And out of the 50 that they got sent, they make 20 of them work, and they sell them for like $100 each. Like, you can get your hands on a pretty decent touchscreen equipped, good looking screen computer for like $100 to $200. And I've had really good luck with them. The one that I use in my photo booth right now when I'm doing DJ gigs, it was $100 because it didn't have the keyboard. But for photo booth, don't care. I do like using a mouse and keyboard for the UI stuff if I can. I just find it's more accurate. It is nice as well because you can label all the channels. That's been very handy, being able to go and across the bottom set everything. But yeah, to answer some questions on these things, I think these are competitively priced. If you already have the UI16, especially for the price you paid, it's a bit of an upgrade. But I don't think, in your case, I don't think it is a. That'd be almost 4 times the price. About 3.5 times the price that you paid. If you're buying new. I think some of the extra features on this guy could be worth it. 24 in, 22 out. So you can record direct to an SD card. That's cool. 22 channel USB audio interface. If you need an audio interface, this is 100% worth it. So let me readjust my internal expectations and thoughts about this. If you need an audio interface and you're considering something like the UI16, go straight for either this or the UI24. Don't bother with the UI16 if you need an audio interface, because the cost difference between buying, like, what is it even? Okay, I'm on Sweetwater. Let's go here. So, studio and recording audio interfaces. Right. I need. So we want something with at least. Oh, they still have FireWire interfaces on here. This is one of the problems I have with in my studio right now. Our control surface is a audio interface as well, but because it's audio interface through FireWire and it's control surface through USB, we basically just use a different unit, and it's way overkill for a control surface, but we have it, so it's really cool because people walk in and they see a 48 channel mixer board. Oh hell yeah! And then it's basically being used to move the faders up and down. Let's do USB. Just to keep apples to apples here. So this is an 18 in 20. However, this only has 8 mic inputs. Do they even make an audio interface that has that many analog inputs to start anymore? No, UFX did, or my UFX has 12. Yeah, UFX 3. I have the previous version. I think mine's a UFX 2. Might be a UFX 1. These are great, killer setups. Show me the back panel. Show me the back panel. Yeah, so this one has 12 inputs, like analog inputs, $3,200, right? And only 4 of those are mic preamps. Do they have? Oh, simultaneous I/O. Okay, we've got that. Number of preamps. Oh yeah, the number of preamps caps out at 10 on here. Even okay, that's an yeah. So even if you did get something like this, $300 for the cheapest USB interface that has 8 mic preamps, you still then have to ADAT in an extra set of preamps. So that'll be another $200 to $300, even if you go with something similar to this, to get up to 16, right? So 16 mic inputs, 20 mic inputs as a multi-track recorder into your computer when you're going to have to spend probably $600 to do that anyway. And it doubles as a killer live soundboard. Yeah. Like I said, I would say this board here, this AT&T, because it is 16 mic inputs and because it doubles as the USB interface and at its price, its main competitor is going to be the UI-24. And I think the UI-24 would hold its own against it. I would take if I needed the recording interface, I would go straight to one of those two. I wouldn't compromise on the UI-16. The UI-16 is great, but it only does 2-channel recording. So, great mixer board. It's the one I personally use, and at its price point, I think it is one of the best values on the market, period. UI-16. What are they, like 550 American? They're all over the place here in Canada. 560. Yeah, in Canada, they have a map, right? Minimum advertised price, and I keep seeing them for less than it, and I don't know what to do because I'm a dealer, so I'm supposed to sell them for what they kind of or advertise them for what they tell me. But then I have, Amazon undercutting me, and it depends on the day, right? One day I'll go and Amazon will have it at the normal price, and then the next day it'll be somewhere below it. I think it's third-party sellers marking it down. But yeah, in terms of if you only need 12 mic inputs all day, every day, unless you need the multi-track recording, instantly worth it, even though it's double the price. Instantly worth it, even though it's over double the price. So yeah. So long story long, that's my thoughts on the CQ12T. I don't know if I would bother. Mostly DJ, wedding, and private events, and do some smaller live sound stuff. So UI-16 is perfect. Maybe someday I'll be enticed enough to give the Allen and Heath a try. 100%. I'm right there with you. I wouldn't bother with this one, and that's across the board. 10 mic inputs. This is actually priced pretty well for 10 mic inputs still. Like, it's not, like, it's priced right, but I would spend the extra and get this. But only if I really need it. If you're mostly doing DJ stuff, yeah, the UI16 is way more than enough. It is overkill. I have a hard enough time convincing TJs to get a little $100 used Yamaha board or something like that. But yeah, it is though really nice. Like I did a wedding right after I got my UI16. I brought it to everything I had because it worked. It sounded so good. It worked really well. The USB playback on it is handy because you can just take a USB stick, pop it in with a few of like your first dances and things like that saved on it, as well as like a general list, and you can kind of make it work. But yeah, if you're just DJing and stuff, this is massive. And not all that much space, right? It does take up 4 units in a rack, so depending on the rack you have, it may not take up all that much space. And at what you paid, it's like it's worth its asking price, but you'd be hard priced to find. Yeah, I mean, well, I'll take overkill as long as it doesn't hurt my back, right? Like if I've got a gig where it's like, hey, I only need to bring my smaller speakers, I'm bringing my smaller speakers because they're lighter. This thing weighs less than most standard sized mixer boards. So what I did with mine, these side slots are big enough to fit cables through. So I have a 4-channel I think it's the PTU 7000 from Phoenix Pro. I have that 4-channel in the same rack, pre-wired into here with a I went with a 6U shallow rack. I did a review for the rack, and I must have been really tired because it was nothing but ums and ahs and me meandering around, so I just deleted it. But I put my 4-channel, wired it directly into here, and then I wired my so I've got my 4 mics and stuff plugged into here. I put a rack mount. I think it's a Furman power conditioner or line conditioner in the rack with it to fill it in. So for speaking events, I legitimately walk in, I plug one cable into the wall, XLR outs to each speaker, and I've got extra plugs on the back to plug those in, and it takes me it takes me seconds to wire everything up. It's great. And then I have all these other channels for doing wired mics if I need. But yeah, I leave this thing wired up for spoken events, even though it's real overkill for it. That might change because I do have a bunch of I did a video recently, or not so recently, on Shure. I didn't even know this, or actually no, it'll be under I think it'll be under analog mixers on here. Shot by, I can't remember what the name of the damn thing is. I got from a electronic recycler a whole bunch of Shure mixers. This is a sign that I need to eat and that I cannot find live sound. There we go. I believe it's under analog mixers. It might be under line, which if that's the case, then I went to the wrong spot. Sure. These guys here, 947. I got 3 of these for $50 each. Used. So these might end up getting wired into some of my systems for spoken events, because they do actually work way better for speaking. And then you can it outputs either a mic out or a line out, so you can plug it into a mixer. I need to test them. They're not designed to handle toms and stuff, but I need to actually mic up some toms with them and see if it'll do the job. Because if I can have one of these handling my toms with that one out and have that pre-wired in with my UI16, live sound just got a whole lot easier, because I plug all my tom mics into this guy, and then I have one channel for my toms, like I was talking about with your MG10. But yeah, for these guys, I love it being rack mounted. Yeah, racking is so nice. It is so nice to be able to walk to a venue and just have everything wired in, everything set up. Yeah, it's so nice. Yeah, the more um the I still show up really early to events. Um, a lot of times I don't need to, especially for DJing, because it is that quick if you have the wireless mics pre-wired up. But for live sound events, it's still, there's so many lines to run and so many things to set up that it can take a while. But yeah, these are my go-to for live sound. But yeah, if you have one of these, like I said, I was using these for DJing as my sound mixer, and it may still end up being used sometimes. It just all depends on the event. I've got a few racks I've put together. Like I just put one together. I think I mentioned this in a previous stream. I found a set of Yorkville 18-inch subs for $350 Canadian for the pair, which that works out to in American money about 270, 275, I think, for a set. But they're passive. But these are their Elite series, so they actually have RCF drivers in there. Like you open them up and it's like made in Italy RCF across the back. Them being passive, I had a amp left over because I had bought a set of Electro Voice speakers. I think I paid $450 for the pair, and in Canada they sell for $550 each. So I was like, yeah, I will take those right now. I will come to your house and get them. They came with this older Behringer amp that can put out 500 watts aside, and I powered my subs with those, and I sold those speakers for $500 for the pair, like last week. So now I've got a rig that I paid, counting in that $50 from there. I paid $300 for two 18-inch subs, including the amplifier. And then I, through a different course of events, I ended up with a free crossover because the venue didn't need it anymore. So I've got that wired into the rack with the amplifier. So everything is pre-wired. I can just run my cables into it, run the cables out. Done. And also, I just did. This is. I've been very, very lucky with free stuff as of late. Somebody came by and they dropped off I would say it's at least 100 foot. It might actually be 150 foot. I haven't measured it yet. Speaker cable. It's massive. It's Speak-on ends on each, or no, not Speak-on. It's 1/4 inch, but it's Nutric ends on each side. But I'm gonna, yeah, I made out pretty good. But yeah, I got this free cable, and it's thick, and like it strikes me as they probably left it. They probably had like one thing they had to wire up really, really far away. Oh, and you can't see it, but I actually, funny enough, I just got a notification of what I'm going to talk about. I am going to take that cable. I do not need 100 or 150 feet of speaker cable. It's never going to see use. So I'm going to get some speak-on connections that I just went on AliExpress and bought a bunch. The guy bought like I think it was a 10, it was like an 8-pack for $12 or something like that with free shipping. They won't be as good as the actual like NutriKens, but they'll fit the bill. And I'm just going to cut the cable every 20 or 30 feet and make a bunch of speak-on cables out of this free cable. So by the time I'm done, I'll have $12 put into probably about 4 or 5 speaker cables, which is great. And yeah. So if you're putting together stuff, used is a toss-up right now. I don't know where. It all depends on where you're from. In my area, it's a flip of a coin. I've seen people selling this UI 16 that I've got on the screen here for $50 less than brand new. Why would I go and buy it? Like, why would I ever do that? It's just buy it new and have the warranty. In some cases, I've seen it actually. One guy had it left over because these were hard to get for a little bit because just like anything digital, the chips just weren't there. There was a local seller who was selling it for more than you could buy it for, and he didn't drop his price when they came back into stock. So you could just go buy it from the store for less than somebody was asking for used. So you have to be a bit careful. Not everything that looks like a good deal is. I have seen like passive speakers. I don't know why people think that they have resale value. I did a review on some YX15s from Yorkville recently that I paid $100 each Canadian for those, so $70 a pop, and in terms of American money, and those were 100% worth it because I have amps ready to go. A lot of people I think they're looking up or they're either going with what they paid for initially, or they're going with what their powered counterparts are selling for. And it's just, no, it doesn't work that way. Computer parts are really bad for it too. I tried to buy, I've been trying to upgrade my studio computer, and it doesn't need anything too crazy. It's so dumb. I can build a new computer for less than people are asking for 10-year-old equipment. And it's, yeah. So yeah, used market, when it comes up good, pounce on it. The AMX10 video I just did, that was I can't remember if I paid 20 or $30 Canadian for the thing, but it's a powered mixer I got for next to nothing, and it's really cool and weird. That's exactly what I want. Is eventually you get to a point where it's like, oh, that's weird, I want that. Same my AMX from Akai, not the AMX10, but just their like DJ Serato Pro unlocking little DJ mixer. I got it for $40. They're going for like $200-300 on eBay for no reason. I don't know why they're selling for that much. Used stuff is very odd. Like I don't know what it is, particularly about the DDJ 400, but the eBay prices on the thing are insane. I just don't get it. But now I'm just ranting. I've been on here for, I believe, coming up on 2 hours, which is an hour more than I normally do. But I've got people here, so I'm staying a little longer. So I'm going to be back next week, Monday at noon Mountain Time. I have no idea what that is, wherever the heck you guys are, depending on who you are. So thanks for coming out. Thanks for chatting. I've working on a couple videos, particularly the one about, I mentioned earlier in this stream, some uplights that I bought. That video should be out for next week. Yeah, and then I've got one in the tank about using car audio in DJ setups. Spoiler, as I've already talked about this on one of my previous streams, don't. It's usually not worth it. But thanks everybody for coming out, hanging out. It's cool to have some live people here. That was a lot of fun. And I we'll see you all next time. Now, this might cut off YouTube.